we are at Mount Annan Botanic Gardens, which is in Mount Annan, funny enough, so it's aptly named, but its location's kind of between Narellan and Campbelltown. And my guest today is Julian, and Julian, I stumbled across and was very taken aback because before I knew of Julian, I thought I was a dude in Australia who'd probably done the most rucking pound for pound. But how many days have you rucked in a row now?
I'm at 2,479 without missing a day.
So that's, just quick napkin math, like 6-7 years?
It's I'll be 7 years on the 31st of July.
Holy
so,
dooly.
about 6 years, 10 months.
Right.
Yeah.
So it puts me to shame, but also made me very curious as to, well, one, I wanted to get one of our rucksacks onto him because I'm like, there's no better person that can give us feedback on our rucks versus other rucks, because this guy's been using other rucks for 6 and change years. But then also I just thought, what drives a person to stick to a streak like that? Because I've never seen or heard anything in any of the deep dives I've done into ruck. I haven't heard of anyone anywhere in the world kind of on a streak like that. I see it with running a little bit, with guys that'll do like 5k a day.
Yep.
But I'd never heard of a rucking streak. So I guess the obvious place to start is, like, how did the streak start? Is there a backstory behind it?
Yeah, well, mental health is the short version. I was working, I'd done about 15 years in justice. I started working in juvenile justice probably back in about 2007. I did about 4 or 5 years with them, and then I thought it'd be a good idea to change over to corrective services. So I started with them in 2008 as a parole officer, and did all my training, did quite a few different jobs with them, but parole work was the main one. And with any of those kind of frontline jobs, you're dealing with interesting people with all sorts of criminal history and various behaviours, anger issues, mental health issues themselves. And really it was essentially a risk management job. So you were assessing offenders for risk and making sure the community was kept safe. And when you're managing those sort of people all the time, you're dealing with threats, difficult behaviour, you're doing home visits, and stress builds up over time. And I guess it's not unlike being with the police or the fireys or the ambos, all those frontline roles. You get stress and it builds up, and it's not something you really talk about. You just find ways to manage it and keep going.
So did you get into that line of work through like a social worker background, or how do you get into that line of work? Well,
not really. It was just I'm the kind of person that starts stuff and gets bored and never finishes things. So I've done a lot of things over the years. I mean, I started as a personal trainer, and then I went and worked for Quarantine when it was still called Aquas, and I was working at the airport for a long time, and I was a postie, and then I started in juvenile justice because it was close to home.
Right.
So
and you just applied for a job that was...
Applied for a job, did the training, got a certificate 3 or 4, I think it was, in youth work.
Yep.
And it was on the job training, and then corrective services was the same. They put out a call for parole officers, and I applied, and because I had the background in juvenile justice, I got the job. And then it was it was a 9-week training course, and then it was a 12-month series of on-the-job training where you actually shadow other parole officers and follow them around and learn how to do the job, because it's a
But
No.
you don't, did you? But you never learned how to cope with the job while you were learning to do the
it's
job?
not, and it was never really something that they talk about at length. There was kind of a couple of hours of training about mental health first aid, and then they talk about the kind of stress that you might feel and the kind of situations you might be in and the kind of scenarios, and you do some training about how to manage those scenarios. But there was never really, I suppose, any long sort of lengthy discussions about how to manage stress long term, or the build up of stress, or
Yeah.
the ways in which having to deal with those kind of situations day in, day out, how that affects you long term. And I mean, I don't know, maybe back then mental health was still
I was going to say,
pretty
like, it was a taboo
not talked
subject.
about.
Yeah,
That's right. So,
Yeah.
and over the years, what I would see in corrective services was, every now and then a colleague would start to burn out, and they'd stop turning up at work, or they'd find, ways to cope with the stress, and some of them weren't so good, alcohol or misuse of medication or gambling, whatever. That's not because they were bad people, it's just, you try and find ways to manage the stress you're dealing with, because you don't tend to put your hand up and go, I don't feel so good. So, and everything's fine, I guess, until the day it's not.
Yeah.
And you never really know when that's going to happen.
No.
So, yeah, for me it wasn't even anything major. There was no one sort of traumatic event that I was a part of, because you learn to cope with those high stress scenarios. And I worked in the jails and in the community as well. So in the community, you're sort of managing, this hill. I don't know who put this in. You let me talk up the hill.
No, it's the common theme of my podcast, right? There's a lot of heavy breathing going on.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
That's a good view, actually.
It is a good view up here. This all used to be farmland.
Yeah, well, they've made good use of it.
Yeah, this was, I think this was one of the original landholder grants back in the early days of the colony. It's like a 3,000 acre grant or something.
Yeah, right.
It was a dairy farm until maybe the late 60s. And then I think the State Planning Authority bought the land with a view to turning it into some kind of public park.
Yeah.
And then the Royal Botanic Gardens actually bought it, I think it was in the late 60s maybe. But then it was a riding ranch after the dairy closed. And then
Like horse riding.
Yeah. And then I think the late 70s or the early 80s, the Botanic Gardens started developing this and turning it into what it is today.
Holy dooly. This is how close it is to suburbia, people.
Yeah, that's Campbelltown.
Yeah, right. God.
So I actually grew up in this area, and
Yeah, right. I was Western Sydney, but I was more kind of Richmond, Windsor way.
yeah, right. Well, that's changed too, hasn't
Oh
it?
man, the whole Western Sydney has just changed so much. I went out and saw Commando Steve's got a gym out at Rouse Hill,
Right.
and we used to go to Amaroo Park to race cars when I first left school. I had a mate whose parents were into cars, and they'd race at Oran Park, which doesn't exist anymore, and it's around here somewhere.
Yep.
It's now a housing development, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And Amaroo Park, and he's right on the road where we used to turn into Amaroo, and man, it has changed so much, so much. But so you had all that experience with having to manage some mental health stuff around your work, and so how did you discover rucking that long ago? Because I even think rucking probably would have been pretty early on in the US, even back like 7 years ago.
Oh, it was. I actually, I first sort of came across rucking, would have been back in 2007, I suppose. And I was a little bit into one bag travel, the idea of just traveling with a carry-on bag and that's it.
Yep.
And it was my brother actually was trolling the internet and said, oh, check out this group. They've got these bags called GR2, and it was Go Ruck.
Yeah, yep.
And at that time, the Aussie dollar was doing pretty well, and they couldn't sell any bags, so they were selling out these GR2 bags. I think the exchange rate for us, I think, ended up costing me maybe 120 Australian,
Wow.
including postage.
It's very different to my experience.
Something like that.
I bought,
Yeah.
even just recently.
So that was when I first sort of heard the idea of rucking, and I never really did any rucking until, I suppose, things started going bad at corrective services. So, you know, I just managed it. It was no big deal. That was just the regular stress of the job, until one day I couldn't sleep, and I was, you know, having lots of bad thoughts and thought I was having a heart attack. So I took myself off to the hospital the following morning, and turned out it wasn't a heart attack. It was just a bad panic attack.
Yep.
And that kind of triggered a series of doctor's visits, and then I had to take some time off work, and there was workers' comp and psychologists and psychiatrists and all that kind of stuff, because it got quite bad for me. Because when you're in those kind of jobs, it becomes your identity. It's like who you are, right? And then all of a sudden, I wasn't in that job anymore, and I couldn't go back because they couldn't move me anywhere else. And it's, you know, I was taking medication. I just started taking medication, and they tell you that, you know, it could actually make you feel worse.
Yep.
And so it did. It made me feel really bad. And
Was that like a Prozac sort of style?
I don't think it wasn't Prozac. It was Lexapro and something else. But another thing that doesn't really get talked about in mental health is, like, you don't just go to the GP, put your hand up and say, I'm having some anxiety or depression, and they give you a pill and then everything's fantastic.
Yep.
There are dozens of different medications, and you've got to find the right dose, the right combination that actually works.
Which takes a while too.
Which
right?
takes a long time, and in the interim, you know, you're not feeling so great, and maybe can't even get in to see a psychiatrist, which is what happened to me. I think my partner, when things started to go bad, I think she called every psychiatrist she could find in the Sydney area, from the south coast all the way up to the central coast, and couldn't get an appointment for something like 6 months to see a psychiatrist. And in the end, I was very lucky. I was on a waiting list, and I was able to get in and see someone in about 2 months. But, you know, in that 2 months, I was trying to find a medication that actually made me feel better. Things felt a lot worse, and I suppose the low point for me was throwing my phone and my wallet across the kitchen at my wife and saying, I'm done. And I walked out, and I was headed down to the local cliff top, where a lot of other locals have,
where the lifeline sign is.
They've thrown themselves off. That was down at Mollymook on the south coast, and I was very lucky because she recognised what was going on, found the car keys and chased me down and slapped me across the head, and that sort of jolted me out of where I was. But it made me realise later on that I think with mental health, you're not always in a place where you can actually ask for help. And the thing that scared me was that I didn't really want to do it, but I felt like something was pushing me to do that.
Yeah, right.
It was pretty frightening. But it wasn't a good time, so took some medication. And then back to your question about rucking, I was seeing a psychologist, I was seeing a psychiatrist, and they were talking about all these strategies, and I just couldn't make anything work. I just couldn't find any traction, and I felt like I was actually getting worse rather than better. And then one day I walked my son to school, and I was wearing one of these ruck bags, and the psychologist said to me, that's an odd looking bag, I've never seen a bag like that before. And I spent the next 20 minutes talking about what rucking was. And when I took a breath, she said, why don't you put an event on Facebook and just see if anyone else wants to come and try rucking with you. And so that was sort of that was beginning of 2019. And all these people started to turn up. I had 2, then 4, then before I knew it, I had 10, 15 people. And it was all people, mainly blokes,
Yeah.
similar to me, either still in the fireys or the police or the ambos, or had ended up leaving because of stress and just needed something to blow off steam, have a chat. And that's how that started. And then a couple of months into that, I realised that I felt pretty good doing it. So I thought, why not try every day? And here I am, nearly 7 years later, still doing it.
Yeah, nice. And that first group that you got together, did many of them have like rucksacks, or were they just putting weight in a backpack?
No, they were just, I was the only one with a proper rucking bag, and then...
So it was more of like a walking, hiking
just,
side.
Yeah. But what I was doing early on was I was sort of educating people about how rucking's a bit different to hiking, and you've got to get the weight up higher on your back and close to your back, and it's not about carrying the load through your hips, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so eventually, a lot of the guys that came regularly started to buy bags that were a bit more set up for rucking, heavier, thicker straps, that sort of thing.
Yeah, right. And do you still meet up with those people? Any of those people?
I don't. Well, I was living on the south coast at the time, and I live up here in Countdown now, so I don't see them so often. But I do still chat with some of them from time to time on Facebook.
Yeah.
And a lot of them still comment on Facebook because I post the odd picture here and there about what I've been doing.
And how many days into your daily rucking routine did you notice things changing from a mental health standpoint?
I think the thing I noticed very early on was that it kind of started to calm me down a lot. So, started to regulate the nervous system a little bit. It's just the act of actually carrying the weight itself. I found that very beneficial for me because, being someone who was carrying a lot of anxiety, I just found having that weight close to me and the heaviness of it calmed me down.
How are you?
G'day.
Good.
And so I was probably maybe, when I really started to know, I was probably a couple of months in, maybe 2 or 3 months in, and I found myself actually, it gave me time to actually think about some of the stuff that the psychologists and the psychiatrists were talking about, and actually put into place some of the strategies they were talking about. I was able to go through that stuff in my head because I was calmer.
Yep.
And I suppose it's like weighted.
Sort of
Yeah. But I suppose for me the weight was like the idea of weighted blankets, I suppose, for anxious
like
people.
That calming,
Yeah.
that calming sensation.
Yeah.
I also think there's a bit of medicine in being outside. Were you someone that spent a lot of time outside prior to doing the rucking thing, or were you
Well, I
like
was
an inside dweller? So it wasn't really, it wasn't the outdoor.
But I will say this, the job that I was in, most of the time I was indoors.
Yeah.
One of the offices I actually worked in didn't have a single window, and I was in that office for close to 4 years.
Oh.
And the level
Fluoro
of
lights.
level of sickness in that office was extraordinary. I don't know if there's probably statistics on it somewhere.
Oh,
But
there's have to be
it
about
has to
natural
have an
light
effect,
exposure.
right?
Yeah. Well, I think even in rental properties now, it's almost like there's a law that you can't have rooms like living rooms without windows.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely got to be some kind of research out there. Otherwise, they wouldn't make real estate law about it. But yeah, that's interesting, man. And so you do this for how long before you kind of decide that there's almost a coaching or like a business wrapped in this thing?
Yeah, that was slow to come, and it's funny because, I'd done around, it was actually 103 days, I can tell you the exact number, and I was still very early on in the daily thing, and my mental health still wasn't really settled, and I was still struggling with, how to manage what I was going through, and at 103 days I nearly chucked it all in and said I had enough. And then my then 7-year-old, he sort of heard me, and he came out and he said, I'll go rucking with your dad. And he threw his school backpack on and he came out with me because he didn't want me to end the streak.
Yep.
Because I'd obviously talked about it a little bit.
Yep.
And And he's been doing it with me ever since. So he's 13 now.
So he's on a streak too.
He's done 2,376 days.
So he's 103 days behind
Exactly,
you. Yeah, right, right.
And he keeps telling me that he's going to beat me one day.
Yeah.
Well, not unless I'm dead.
Yeah.
And then he thinks about that.
And then he does 104 days after you pass.
Yeah. So there was that, and then you know, I was bumbling along, and for a long time, probably the first 6 months, maybe 12 months, you know, the daily streak was just what kept me going. It got me out of bed in the morning, and after he started rucking with me, it was like no matter how bad the nights were, because I used to get nightmares and terrible thoughts about self-harm and all this kind of stuff, and it was the one thing that I could cling to every single night, because I knew he'd be waiting to go for a ruck with me the next day. So there was that, and then about 12 months later, I was at a dinner party with a friend who I met rucking. I was yapping, as my son would say, and when I stopped to take a breath, she sort of jabbed me in the chest with a finger and said, "You should become a health coach. You'd be just right for that." And I'm like, "Well, what the hell is health coaching? I don't even know what that is." And she told me, because she'd done some training in the US, and she was doing a little bit of that. So I looked into that and found this company online and signed up to do that. And the way they teach is that you essentially are your first health coaching client. And it was after that that suddenly all the doors seemed to open, all the ducks lined up, and I suddenly saw that rucking as a backbone for living a more balanced life, there might be something in that. And so I went and did the training, and then I started just working with burned out, broken down ex-frontline staff, the same as me, who were just struggling with the same sort of things, you know, identity, how to start again in a new career, you know, how do you actually put into practice some of the stuff that psychologists and psychiatrists are talking about, because, you know, they kind of tell you what's wrong with you.
You've just got to have time to process it.
And they might make suggestions, but how do you practically put that into action?
And were you actively finding these people yourself, or through that group that you joined, did they bring people to you?
Yeah, all of it was word of mouth.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, all of it was word of mouth. So, yeah, I've done that for a while now, but even then it didn't really click. I mean, I'd been doing this for about 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And from time to time, about every couple of weeks, someone will reach out and ask me about it and why and all that, and I'll share why I did it. And then about maybe 18 months ago, I thought, no. And what I realised was that what I was starting to do with a lot of my clients was to incorporate rucking and talking to them about the value of rucking every day. And what I started to see was that guys with anxiety like me, suddenly that would start to get better. But I was also seeing things, like I had one guy who was supposed to go in for a knee reconstruction, and he started rucking every day, and 3-4 months later, I don't think I need a reconstruction anymore.
Nice.
And he's now 3 years into it, and his knee's fine. He's not had any pain. I've had another guy who was on Lyrica, 300 milligrams a day, and he's stopped taking all the Lyrica because the pain's gone away. So
good.
Slowly over time, I started to, I suppose, realise that there was something to this rucking.
Yep. Yeah, and like I've spoken to a lot of people about rucking, but never really, like we've always spoken about the mental benefit of getting outdoors, but we've never actually talked about the physiological benefits of being outdoors with a pack on your back.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting. And so you personally, on your streak, is there a minimum distance you walk, or do you have a set kind of route of how far you ruck and how heavy you carry every day?
Yeah, no, I have a minimum distance, and you mentioned the running streak earlier on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I based the rucking streak on, because with the running streak, and I like running. Don't tell any ruckers, but I actually like running.
I like running too. Running doesn't like me though.
Yeah, I'm starting out like that too. So it's a minimum 1 mile a day.
Yep.
And for me, and I've got a page on my website, and it's
I'll put a link in it.
Don't care how you do it. if you fall over, break your ankle, and your buddy has to push you in a wheelchair, as long as you got that ruck on, it counts.
Yeah.
So it's not about what you can't do, it's about just finding a way.
And I guess by having it only a mile, which is 1.6k or thereabouts, it's enough that it gets you out the door.
Yes.
Like, so if you're not feeling it, and you know that, like for me, I probably do about 6k's an hour. So to do a 1.6 is probably 15, 20 minutes.
Yep.
And I'm like, I've always got time to just do that.
Yes.
But like with most of the things because I package that a little bit myself sometimes when I get busy with work, once I'm out, it's never just 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like,
if
I went out and go, I'm going to do a mile, I'll do 2 or 3, because once you get out, start listening to a podcast that's what I was going to ask you too. When you go out, you were talking about mindfulness. Are you raw dogging it, or do you use it as an opportunity to listen to podcasts, or do you just...
It really depends how I feel. On the good days, I might listen to music, or I might go with nothing, just as you said, raw dogging, just so I can, listen to the birds and the bees. So I really take it on a day-by-day basis, and it's the same with weight too. Like I'm very much into go by feel. No matter what it is, when we talk about health and wellness, I think take what's known, but you need to apply it to yourself and your own body and how you think and feel. Because if you're not, it's not going to be necessarily that beneficial. So
yeah.
So that's.
He's got a patch. Woohoo! So how much is in your pack today?
So it's 15 kilos of weights plus my water plus my iPad, so about 17 all up.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Going pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Going up the hill more.
Go for another hill.
More puffing.
Yeah, a bit more puffing and carrying on.
No, that's awesome. And so, is this your full-time gig now, doing the coaching stuff?
It's not quite at the level at the moment where I can give up everything else.
Yep.
Doesn't make me enough money, but so I do a little bit of NDIS related stuff on the side.
Oh, okay.
Just because with my case management background, I get called every now and then for some of the participants who have more complex needs.
Yeah.
So there's people with mental health and anger management, and so a lot of people too are still on various criminal orders. So because I understand that background,
yeah, it makes it.
So I do a bit of that on the side still.
Yep.
I actually have pulled back a little bit from the face-to-face, pure sort of health coaching.
Yep.
Because I spent the last 18 months trying to put together something for people like me who work in, frontline and whatnot, shift work, can't get to regular yoga classes and all the traditional things that people say to do for wellness, and just try to put something together that maybe might benefit them when they need it. Because the thing that I found was I was fine until the day I wasn't.
Yeah.
And you just never know when that day is going to come.
Yep.
Because I think anybody in those jobs, you just get so used to the stress and everything else, you become desensitized to a lot of different kind of stimulus, and over time that just builds up.
Yeah. I met a girl that we did some stuff on Search for Hurt with, she's a swim coach, but she does breath work. Mm-hmm. So she does a lot of in-pool diving sort of breath work stuff, and so she works with, I think they're called universal apnea, and so they work with a lot of PTSD, first responders, and just getting them to learn how to regulate their breathing, so when they're getting in that panic situation, they can try to remove themselves out of it. And she kind of opened my eyes up to that whole, you just never think about that, right? Like you think, the police are always there, the ambos are always there, the paramedics are always there, but like they're seeing, and it was the same with you in your job, you're seeing the worst of society, and you're seeing it every single day as part of your job. And I think it takes a very, it takes a certain personality that can do that kind of work without having the mental repercussions of it.
Yes, that's right. And I think And it's a really good point about the breathing, because that's one thing I still use, box breathing to regulate myself when I need it, because it doesn't just go away either. But
No.
you're right, people in those roles.
So is that in 10? Is that 10 or?
The one I use is in for 4, hold for 2, out for 4, hold for 2. But yeah, there's various different timings, and you just got to, again, I think you got to find the one that works for you.
Yeah.
But you're right about, people just don't think about the kind of stress that those first responders and whatnot deal with every day.
Yeah.
And the way it kind of works is that, you're just expected to put up with abuse and people shouting at you and threatening to kill you and, trying to actually physically assault you if they don't get their own way. And that's a daily thing for police officers and fireys and ambos and, correctional officers, often nurses as well.
I always wondered, like, my wife loves watching those paramedic shows where, like, it was a reality TV show where they filmed paramedics and they did them everywhere. But she'll watch that show and I cringe at some of the situations they have to pull up at, and it could be 2 females.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there needs to be a policeman in the bus.
That's right.
Particularly at, like, in the witching hours, like Friday night, Saturday nights,
Yes.
all they're dealing with is drug or alcohol affected guys, and it's usually guys.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, they put themselves in some situations that just could turn south really quickly.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why, I don't know if it's ever been looked at or if there's the feasibility why you couldn't have a police officer in a bus with two ambos but
I suspect it's just not enough resources.
yeah.
And that's what I used to see a lot in corrections, because in the community, as a parole officer, you would have to do home visits with different offenders, and 9 times out of 10, now it was all risk management, but you could walk into a situation where the person you were there to see was fine, but his 6 or 7 housemates have all been injecting something the night before, and you just don't know. Like, it can be very intimidating.
Yeah.
And you go on your own, so usually you would do a day full of home visits, and what happens if something goes wrong on the first home visit?
Yeah.
You get knocked out and you're laying on the front lawn until somebody comes to check on you, or wonders why you haven't come back to the office for lunch.
Yeah, and then even when you look at it from a skilled worker perspective, like if someone's fresh out of their training and fairly new on the job, and that happens in the first few months or even the first year or two, and then they start second guessing their career choice, like we've onboarded and trained this person to be a very pivotal service within community, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, I'm going to go and just set an e-commerce business up, and you lose a very and they're pieces of the community that we need,
it's an important point. And the thing that I do see is a lot of guys and women with a lot of experience do end up leaving the different services because they just get to the point where their health starts to suffer.
Yeah.
And I think there are guys that I know that are still in the job. They've been in the job for 30, 40 years, and they're still plugging away, and they're great. They're great at what they do. But I can't help but notice with some of those guys, things do change. There might be the odd relationship breakdown, physical health starts to deteriorate, and I just can't help but thinking there's got to be a link.
Yeah. So how, like, all that being said, I'm massively bullish on, because I always think of, we're building a community up through what we do with rucking, through what we do with the TV show, and there's always an opportunity, and we're working through it now, looking at different charities that we can partner with. But I remember when we were speaking to the coach, the breath coach, there wasn't really something that gave first responders like an anonymous way, and this is where the online programming would work really well, but give them access to something that's going to help them out without them actually having to go through the official processes of, so I like the idea of, like, you build, like say you build out an online program, which I know you've mentioned that that's on your to-do list, but where it's funded, it's almost crowd-funded. So like as a community, you know, we can chip in to make that accessible to all first responders, and it's very specific to first responders, but where they know it exists and they can use it when they feel like they might need, or they might even just jump in to have a look, because like you said, you know, when you know that you need it, it's sometimes too late. But I think resources like that should be like a no charge, like, you know, and even if it's, you know, it starts with the online programming, and then it can be, you know, like if you get a group of like-minded people that are first responders still in the job but just want to catch up for an outdoor activity versus catching up for a drink after work and drowning your sorrows with 20 schooners. You know, I think that's also, like, there's a good knock-on effect from giving them access to that first step, like, and something online that's inobtrusive. Man, they don't even need like an email address to go in and have a look at it. Like it's purely just jump in. If you like what you see and you hear and you want to try some other things, and then you kind of push them further down the funnel. But I don't know if there's anything like that the government provides them that's not wrapped in government schmel.
Well, there's that, and you know, a lot of government workers tend to be a little bit suspicious of the government programs, and you know, your EAPS, your employee assistance programs. There's always a fear, unfortunately, that it could get back to senior management and that kind of thing,
and then you jeopardise your job because you've made an inquiry about mental health.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, like, honestly, once you put your hand up to say that mental health is an issue, it does cause people to question whether or not you're going to be reliable in a critical incident, and that's fair enough. Because if you're going to fall apart in the middle of something huge, you know, you'd rather have somebody that's not at that stage, you know what I mean?
So you don't want to find out the hard way either.
You know, and that's not a criticism of the different organisations. That's just people in those roles protecting their safety and their colleagues' safety. But you know, does it need to get to that point? I suppose.
That looks like a putting green on a golf course.
Yeah, I think they do a lot of weddings down on that.
That's the lawns for the wedding. Man, this would be a really, because this isn't concrete, I don't think. Is this? Or is it concrete?
It is concrete, yeah, I think it is. Yep.
Because when I was in WA, all of the public paths are done with asphalt. So they don't have to form it up, they don't have to put metal in it, they just get the machine and go pop, 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 pop. Oh, it's glorious to run on. Because where I live, most of my walk trails, if I'm just staying in suburbia, are footpaths. And it burns my hips.
I find that too. Yeah, I get that as well.
And to the point where I have this Misogi, like this once a year challenge that I do, and last year it was to do 52 Ks because I turned 52, so I needed to do a 52K ruck with 5.2 Ks in a bag. And of course, me being me, I left it till the last day of my 52nd year around the sun. So the day before my 53rd birthday,
Adam David Goggins.
Oh man, and I ended up doing the last 10 Ks just walking around a grassed oval with no shoes on because my hips were just fried from walking most of it in on pavements and footpaths. But I never really recovered. Like that was the first time I really noticed how bad footpaths were, and now
up the big hill again.
Yeah, any kind of walking that I do on footpaths, like I just noticed that it affects my hips a bit. But this doesn't feel as bad as what I walk on at home for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a different kind of concrete. It looks different to the normal
it does look
concrete you
that's
see.
why I asked.
Yeah.
But you can tell it's been brushed.
Yeah.
But getting some rain.
I know. But it is interesting, isn't it, that, you know, frontline workers and the amount of stress that they experience. And I don't care what anyone says, no one comes out of the job unscathed.
No, I think
that's why rucking is so good, because it's low skill. You can do it anywhere, at any time. You don't necessarily need to walk outside. You can, if all you got's 20 minutes in the lunchroom, you can still chuck a pack on and walk around the lunchroom table or on the spot if you need to. But and it just, the thing I like about rucking for the frontline stuff is that in many ways it mirrors the kind of things that frontline workers experience and talk about all the time, like carrying stuff or carrying a load or, things like that. So I think there's a lot of, it synchronises well with the kind of jobs that they do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I like to do, and I've done in the past with groups of people, is get a big heavy sandbag together and make people go out and learn to carry it together, and that idea of carrying stuff together.
Yeah, doing it as a combined effort. That's one thing I loved about GoRuck when I first looked into them. And funny, like when I decided, so for me, GoRuck was my first bag because I was listening to like Peter Attia, and like I sort of went down a rabbit hole of Peter Attia and Andrew Huberman and Michael Easter and those guys. And they all were talking about GoRuck and rucking. And
I can't do it. See? I can't fix it. I can't leave a hammer. I can't fix it.
And so I looked at, I just automatically assumed I'd be able to buy a rucksack in Australia.
Yeah, no.
And couldn't. And that sort of started the point to where I now own a ruck company. But I remembered because I hadn't heard of rucking, but I'd heard of GoRuck because I remember they came out probably 10 or 12 years ago and did an event in Sydney.
Yeah, right.
And that's where they started, was doing events. I don't even think they had a rucksack company there. I think it was you turned up with a backpack and a whole lot of weights and threw bricks in bags.
That was the days when on their YouTube channel they used to show you how to wrap bricks correctly
to
not destroy your bag.
So I had actually heard of GoRuck, and that was my first experience with them because we wanted to put their event on Search for Hurt.
Yeah, right.
And have Maddie, who was our athlete at the time, do their event. But then when I found that they were doing bags, bought a bag, got it over, realised there were shortcomings with it for what I wanted it for. Like at the time they were sponsoring CrossFit Games, and you've only got to look at their feed and they're very military.
Yes.
Guns and hardcore events. And I'm like, I was a guy that was 30 kilos overweight, and I'm like, swapping out a 10-pound plate to a 20-pound plate was just too big a jump.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I already had the juice there of, there's no rucking company in Australia. And if this thing is just walking with some weight on your back and it's supposed to be so good, saying all the experts were saying, then why don't we have a ruck company in Australia? Because there were so many morbidly obese and, diabetes was on the rise and blah, blah, blah. People like me needed it.
Yeah.
And so we went about trying to build it, which puts me back into, I guess, you as the most experienced rucker in Australia, I could pretty confidently say, you've now had our bag for
a week and a half,
weeks,
2 weeks, 2 weeks.
So prior to that, you said you had a GR2.
So originally I started with a GR2, and then I had their rucker when it came out, and then their version 3 rucker, and I've got their version 4 rucker as well, which is the kind of bag you were talking about, which is specifically built for those GoRuck style events where you're doing a lot of military, things, you're rolling around and, crawling around and all that sort of stuff. So purpose built for that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've been using for the last 6.5 odd years.
You've been just cycling through those bags, or have you sort of used one till its expiry date, used another till its expiry date?
Well, I just use it until the internal pockets for the ruck plates wear out.
Yep.
And then I order another one. So that's what I've done up until I got a hold of your bag.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God. Honestly, this is a game changer, because the thing that I found about the other bags, and I've used a couple of other bags besides the GoRuck ones as well, and the thing for me that I find is that it doesn't, low weight, so anything under 10 kilos doesn't bother me. But anything over 10 kilos, I start to get pins and needles, my hands start to swell and go numb, and that's why I've got these things, rucking straps.
We had a conversation about that, and I'm like, what do you need rucking straps for? And he's like, you need rucking straps if you're rucking. And I'm like, I've been rucking for 3 years and I've never used a rucking strap.
Yeah, well, you know, I had my timer set on the app that I use to go off every 5 minutes to remind me to use these to lift the weight off my shoulders, because over time it would just, the pressure would build up and things would start to go numb.
Yeah.
But I've been using this one now for close to 2 weeks, and I've used this today, and you haven't seen me touch these once, have you?
No.
So I've been going for nearly an hour.
Yeah.
And I don't have any pins and needles, I don't have any swelling. And
we worked out why.
I worked out why
And
in the first couple of days.
He's the first person in all of, our short history that's worked out. He asked the question first, and I said, I could tell you the secret, but I'd have to kill you. And then he came back and he said, it is, and I can bleep this out, but he said it's because of the bricks and the way the bag's set out, that you've got, like, we designed the bag, like, it was twofold, right? I wanted to be able to make smaller changes in weight up and down, which is why we come up with the brick system. But I also wanted to make something more comfortable, because I was the same. I had my Go Ruck bag and the plate was uncomfortable. It just wasn't, like, it was better than having bricks in a backpack, but not as nice as what I thought something would need to be if you're going to use it on the daily, right? So when we started looking at the bricks, then we looked at, well, we can space the bricks strategically, which gives the load plate, which is that plate behind your back, a bit of flex. And so, because no two spines are the same.
That's right.
And so we were like, well, if you're a plate carrier, and this is why it blows my mind that people are still designing bags, like there's new brands coming out in Australia every month, and they're all ripping off Go Ruck's plate design, and I'm like, so anyway, and that's why I'll bleep out a whole lot of this, because our design patent is getting done as we speak, and as soon as our design patent is done and we've trademarked our Ruck Flex, you heard it here first, then I'll talk about it openly and even advertise. We don't really advertise the bags because the weighted vests part of our business is way bigger than the bags. And so I look at all of these competitors like Ruck Australia and Ruckaway, and they're all coming into the market with a Chinese bag. One of them's doing Aussie plates here, but that's probably just because he can do lower MOQs. Yep. But he talks very Australian-ish, like Australian designed bags and Australian made this and that. And I'm like, that's cool, but you know,
it doesn't solve the problem of the spine, though, does
no, it? But and then funny enough, as soon as we started talking about, well, when you worked it out, and we were having an open conversation about it then, almost that same day, Go Ruck drops their new Rucker 5. Yes. And the big design change and the big, yeehaw moment for Go Ruck in their Rucker 5 bag was this lumbar support.
It's the size of a brick.
Yeah, and it looks horrible. Like, I think, I've ordered one, so I'll give you some feedback on whether it feels horrible, but I'm like, they're dying on the hill of plates and plates and plates and plates, and I'm like, the sooner people work out that it's not a comfortable way to wear weight in a backpack is a plate, because your spine's got to mold around the plate versus the load molding around your spine. That's going to be the aha moment for us, which I haven't been able to openly talk about, but that King Julian here, he worked it out, and only someone who's done as much rucking as you would work it out.
For nearly 7 years, I could feel it straight away. There's just something different about the bag, and I opened it up and I thought, it has to be that, because that's really, and the straps as well. The straps are a bit different.
Yeah.
And so, I admit initially when I got the bag, I thought, oh, these straps are going to be too soft.
Yeah.
It's going to start digging into my shoulders. So I was actually quite surprised over the first couple of days when I didn't get any of that.
Yeah.
And I'd be off walking with my son, because we do this every day as well, so it's our space to walk and talk. And I was yapping away and listening to him, and we're half an hour into the walk, and I haven't touched my straps once to pull the weight off my shoulders, and it just suddenly dawned on me that
Something's different.
something is different.
Yeah, and
it
it's
is.
funny when you talk about the straps. I can't take credit for the strap design. That was actually my manufacturer. So I sent them over a Go Ruck bag, and I'm like, pull it apart, rip it apart, tell me what we could do better. And the first thing that they said was the straps.
Yeah, right.
And it was something about the material and the width and the this and the that. But I'll look up the email now that we've mentioned it, because I'm like, that wasn't a me solve. That was probably the first and only thing that my bag manufacturer said that they could improve on over the Go Ruck bag.
Yeah, right.
So
Because it's not a hiking strap either.
no.
Definitely not a hiking strap.
No, so it's, and we'll keep, like, version 2 is different to version 1. Version 1, the sternum strap was fixed. You couldn't move this strap here.
This is adjustable, that's good.
Yeah, and it wasn't until we had a lady who that sat right across her boobs,
Right.
like her nipples. She was like, oh, it looks like it should be adjustable, but it wasn't.
Yeah, right.
So, we changed that, and then obviously once we started playing with Deca and the Spartan group, the acknowledgement patches became a thing.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing in the rucking community. Got to have your patches.
Yeah. Well, you're rocking
Yeah,
you're rocking your patch,
that's my patch. Yeah,
which I'll have to. How do I earn one of them?
I think you have. I think you've earned
And
one.
then I've got a
Strong
Ruck
division.
Strong.
Yeah.
So that was the
Nice.
first sponsorship we did. So what is this?
So this is a
It's got dates.
it's a sundial. So it's a sundial. So it tracks the pattern of the sun as it moves through the sky. And if you stand back here and look at where the
sun's
shadow
hitting at a
falls
certain
on there,
time?
it tells you what time it is.
Time or date? That's got date on there.
So that little patch on the ground gives you a rough idea of the time of the
date.
year.
Yeah.
But that actually gives
but
you
that's
the
what the
time.
numbers are.
Yeah, that's
right.
the 12 hours on the clock.
Oh, there you go. You won't find out today
No.
because we've got like a Melbourne-esque. This is like what the weather's like every time I go to Victoria.
Yeah. So if you want to know if you're late to your next meeting today, you need to sit here until next Wednesday for the sun.
And they've got the traditional. I've seen these ones before. That's like the old school
Yeah.
sundial that you see when you. Yeah, that's cool. But what a gem of a place to have,
That's great.
like, so close to so many pockets. Like, you've got
So that's-
suburbia there.
Yeah, that's
so,
Mount Annan.
so that's Mount Annan as a suburb.
This over here, where you can see all the white roofs, that's Menangle Park.
Is that the old
So-
Oran Park?
No, Oran Park's the other way,
Oh, okay.
over that way. So this is heading south.
Yep.
So that road you can see down there, all the trucks going, that's the M5, the Hume Highway,
Yep.
heading to Middleham and Barrel.
Oh, yep.
And that's the main railway line.
And this
down
is
there.
Campbelltown here.
Yep, so the houses in the foreground, that's called MacArthur Heights. That actually backs onto Western Sydney Uni.
MacArthur Heights.
It's actually one of the lowest points in
Yeah, I
Canada.
know, right? There's nothing hiked about it. If it was up here, yes.
And this is Glen Alpine, so those houses will work their way around the golf course.
And that looks like an older development. There's a lot of red brick
80s,
and
yeah, 80s.
And then that
over
one there's a
that's
newer one.
Campbelltown. So over the back
Oh,
there
with the
where
bigger
buildings
buildings,
are,
yeah.
That's Campbelltown Hospital, the biggest building in the area.
Yeah, right. Ah, yeah, I see. That one
You know,
there.
we're all about longevity, and we have more people in hospital than.
Well, man,
bigger
I've
hospitals.
got to say, and I don't know whether there's been a study on it, but like when I drive down here, what I call the food slum, so where you get to an intersection and then across every corner of that intersection is KFC, McDonald's, Hungry Jack's, blah, blah, blah. Like, the higher the percentage of that, you just look around at the general population that's in the way higher obesity rates.
Well, it's crazy. You think about, the problem is buying a family meal for McDonald's for many people is cheaper than going to the supermarket and buying fresh fruit and
Yeah.
vegetables and,
which is wrong on so many levels,
meat.
right?
It's just, yeah, it's
So you've either got to make the better food more affordable, or make the shit takeaway less affordable.
yeah, and how do you do that?
They talked about doing the fat tax or the
Food miles and all that. You know, food too travels a long way. So even if it's a fresh apple, how far has it travelled and how long has it been in storage for?
Yeah.
I'll go back up that way and down
yep.
and around. Yeah, but longevity, right? Like, you know, what's the point of living till you're 100 if you're sick for the last 30 years?
Yeah, and that's where, as much as you can't really, you know, he's been cancelled quite spectacularly, the old Peter Attia. Like, he was pivotal. Finding him through my search of how do you walk comfortably with weight was just a game changer. Like, because he gave me a different way of looking at things, where it was about that nominal decade, that, like, you want to live that last 10 years of your life where you're still able to move, you're still playing golf, you're playing with your grandkids, you know, versus the route I was going on. I think I've definitely shortened my lifespan, but I can make my health span better.
Yeah,
so
that's what it's all about, right?
yeah,
Health
yeah.
span.
And that's when, like, I went real deep into it. My company's even called Span Health, and the thing that we're setting up in America is Health Span Ventures.
Yeah, right.
And so, and then because for me it was the first time around being trying to be the world's best entrepreneur that got me into trouble with my health. So this time around, everything we do needs to be, like, this is my work today. What are we on? It's a Wednesday, the 13th of May, and we're walking around, having a chat, doing some media.
That's the work.
And that's my work, yeah, where before it'd be sitting on my ass, eating a Porto, like, you know.
Corporate grind.
Yeah, and I did, man, 15 years I didn't move. Like, I'd go to bed at 3 in the morning after, you know, drinking a bottle of wine to try to wind down, probably having a block of chocolate with that wine, you know, and just did that repeat. And then, yeah, just like what you said with the first responders, you just one day it hits you. Yeah.
I was just going to say that. It sounds very similar. You know, with those guys, it's shift work. You deal with maybe 2-3 critical incidents, and then you go home and you've got to wind down. You can't talk to your partner about it because they're not in the industry. They don't want to hear that you nearly got stabbed and some guy, you know, you found him hanging in the cell or whatever. And so you do the same thing. You have a bottle of wine, some chocolate, and then you get up early the next morning and you do it all again.
Yeah.
And that's your life.
Yeah, and you do that often enough and it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And for me, it was thinking I was having a heart attack, then finding out I had all the comorbidities like type 2 diabetes and fatty liver disease and cholesterol at 16.3 and walking dead basically, and then started to get my health together but never really took it serious because I didn't change the environment.
Yes.
So everything was same. It's just I had diagnosis that common sense would tell me to pull my head in and look after myself, but I just couldn't break away from the environment that I'd set up over 15 years, right? And then probably a year after that, I got cancer. And so, and cancer for me, because mum died of cancer when I was 22. Dad died of cancer when I was 36. And it's been like I've had uncles and grandparents and everyone die of cancer. So for me, that was the real kick in the bum I needed. And then I just realised that to change anything, I needed to change the environment. And so I had all these companies. I just shelved the TV show, sold at very big financial cost. I sold an events business, which I got sort of stung on because they went into liquidation, owing me a heap of money.
Nice.
But you know, would I change anything? Probably not, because if I hadn't done that deal to sell it as quickly as I did, I would have been in it for longer, and I would have still been trapped in that environment of that toxic behaviour, and you know, and who knows, I might be dead instead of whinging about that I lost $1.6 million.
Possibly, yeah. But it's interesting, right? What you talked about with the family history of cancer. It's genetic. Yeah, it is. But it's like, what's that saying? Genetics loads the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, my case was probably slightly different because it was mental health, but because I was fairly fit and healthy and I ate well. But then at some point, I remember actually thinking, doesn't matter how much broccoli I eat or how far I run, it's not actually helping me get over this.
No, because if your cortisol's still running it, pinging like off the radar. And did you do any, like, do you know of, like, from a mental health perspective, anything within your family?
There's a little bit of anxiety, I think. Probably undiagnosed because obviously, you know, my age back then, nobody really talked about it. And when I reflect back onto my own childhood, I was a pretty anxious kid. You know, I used to work myself up and make myself vomit at the thought of doing public speaking and things like that. So the anxiety was there. And
look at you now, you do daily stuff to camera.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? But that's a learned thing. But what I realised over time was that I didn't actually have the tools to live a balanced life. You know, I didn't, at that time when things started to go wrong, I realised that I didn't really have a lot of close friends that I'd kept around me. You know, I wasn't really paying much attention to, you know, different things like my home environment or, you know, everything, the wheels started to fall off. Yeah. And one of the analogies that I use with my guys is the bicycle wheel, you know, and each spoke on the wheel is one area of your life, you know, maybe relationships, your social life, your career, all those sort of things. And if a couple of those spokes loosen up, you know, the wheel will still turn and you'll keep rolling forward, but the wheel gets wobbly. Yeah. And so if you don't address those, if you don't tighten the spokes, it gets to the point where it wobbles so much they get stuck in the brakes and you can't actually roll forward. And if you think of your life like that, if your relationship's no good and, you know, you're struggling at work and you don't start at some point address those, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. So I think what rucking does, and we're going back to what we were talking about before with the importance of it for people in those high stress roles. Rucking is like, to me, it's the multi-tool to keep your body functioning and keep things rolling forward. Yeah. So it doesn't fix everything, but it allows you to give yourself little tweaks on the fly so you can keep going until you can get to a point where you can actually settle down a bit, settle the nervous system, get the cortisol out of your body and actually address whatever it is that's causing the problems.
Yep. So, and on that too, with rucking, on the cortisol part, don't ruck heavy first thing in the morning. There's my tip.
I heard that.
Yeah, so that used to be my heavy ruck was first thing. There's some really, really, really good research around you don't want to have stresses. Like apparently, and this is how the research goes, don't quote me, but it's my take of the research is that when you wake up in the morning, you're in huge fight or flight because you're dehydrated, you're kind of just, you know, you're just waking up, your body's like, where the hell am I, what am I doing, yada, yada, yada. And so the worst thing you can do is turn your phone on and get that massive dopamine hit. The worst thing you can do is your hardest workout of the day, first thing in the morning. And when I say, like, people who should be concerned about cortisol are people that struggle with a bit of mental health stuff, or like me, I found out this stuff because I'm still suffer with visceral fat, so I'm trying to reduce my visceral fat. And if your cortisol's high, that visceral fat's not going anywhere. No. So in the morning now, I don't turn my phone on in the morning for the first hour of the day. I go for a cool walk. I make sure I wear my slides so I don't get too into it. So very cruisy walk, raw dog, think about the day, think about the morning, just be a little bit present. I usually take an electrolyte with me because you do wake up dehydrated. So to help reduce the cortisol, rehydration, doing it the right way with a good electrolyte. And then, because it used to be for me, I'd wake up straight thing, turn my phone on, grab a coffee, and like I was doing all the things that weren't very good, and then go and do a massive hard workout. And it was like a cortisol nightmare. So I always say to people, if I can offer 2 bits of advice around cortisol, because cortisol is a hot topic, particularly with our weighted vest sort of community, is that first hour of the day, no phone, rehydrate, easy exercise. Last hour of the day, no phone, prep for bed, whichever way that works for you. For me, it's a sauna. And reading, for me, is reading in a sauna. And I average, if I'm doing all the right things, I average on my Garmin sleep score probably about 92, 93.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I'm the envy of all my mates.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'd kill for a sleep score like that.
Yeah, but it's, I notice the difference. Like, I think if I don't go for a heavy ruck, so I pick my heavy ruck at the middle of the day. And same thing if I'm ice bathing, I'll do an ice bath in the middle of the day. So I if you think about cortisol, I want to do it in a pyramid.
Yep.
So I want to start easy, gentle, ramp up. And then middle of the day is my hardest exercise, the hardest thing I'll do in a day, which for me is jumping in a bloody ice bath. Yeah, and then the same thing, then reverse it down. I still walk after each meal because I find being type 2 diabetic that's allergic to metformin, I've got to manage my blood sugars with food. And I wear a CGM, and I wore a CGM for about 6 months consistently. And I know what triggers insulin spikes or sugar spikes and blood sugar spikes. And I just find that if I go for a nice walk after I eat, that I get it levels out my blood sugars, which nothing else can for me. So I just, and they're like, I eat at about 10 and 2. And another thing I do, which may or not be helping with anything, I don't really know yet, but is I try to eat during daylight. So I don't eat when it's dark.
Yeah.
So, and that's supposed to be, I think that helps with my sleep score. And definitely rucking heavy. If I've had a lunchtime ruck that's quite heavy and quite hilly, I'll always sleep better. I think that's good for 2, 3, 4 points on my sleep score.
That's good for mental health too. I go heavier on the days when my mental health is not doing so well. I mean, that's the other thing about mental health. It still pops up every now and then. It doesn't just suddenly go away.
It's not like, I've stuck it into my backpack.
Yeah. But what you're talking about is like, it's self-awareness, right? Like, you've obviously over time worked out what works for you and what doesn't work. And that's like, I think that's what a lot of people miss. They search for the answers through a program, a wellness program or lifestyle program or a change in diet, but we're all so busy and we're so stressed. We don't always take the time to just stop and think, well, is this actually, does it feel like it's having a positive impact on me or a negative one?
And that's what you use the bag for. I use my sauna for that. I'd do my mindfulness in the sauna, where I just look back on my day and go, what worked, what didn't work, what did I do bad? Because for me, like, I'm trying to teach myself to be self-disciplined. Like, I just have a real, like, if I promise to you I'm going to do something, I'll eat glass to ensure that I do it. But if I promise myself that I'm going to do something, it's almost laughable. And it wasn't until I was writing my book about it that I just sat back and I went, oh my God. Like, I almost know when I commit to something that's for me, that I've already worked out that I'm not going to do it. And it's that reframing and repackaging and, and for me, I always had to have everything had to be perfect. So I'd plan out the perfect week and then it'd run good Monday, Tuesday, wheels fall off. But as soon as something went wrong, which in my life, I'd throw it out and start next Monday. So my book's called No More Mondays, because I used to just start every Monday. And so now there's a few things that I've worked out. Is that you plan for your worst week, not your best week.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I put a plan together now, it's like, this is what I should be able to do even if my week turns to shit. And then if I do more than that, I feel good, as opposed to self-sabotaging myself if I don't do what I'd planned to do, which is what tends to happen with me. And then the other thing is, I just make a plan not to mess up twice in a row. So, yes, so one of my mates might ring up and go, oh, NBA finals, come around, we're going to have burgers and so you go watch a bit of basketball, have social time, which is amazing because we don't, as guys, have that much anymore. And I don't do the pub or anything like that. So, I go and have a really good time with them, but it might involve eating a burger and a handful of chips,
Yep.
and which isn't the perfect plan and would normally derail me and send me into a self-sabotaging tailspin. Where now I just go, cool, I acknowledge it, I just go, hey,
Everything in moderation.
yeah, and I go and I just don't do it twice. So I just make sure that dinner that night is back on track, and I'm not now going, oh, well, I'll wait till next Monday, and because I had a burger, I'm going to have a pizza for dinner.
What you've just talked about is what I spend a lot of time trying to help people see is that, you know, one bad meal or one missed day in the gym or, you know, one, you know, mucked up day doesn't mean you have to start again from zero.
No.
What you've already built still exists. You just got to let it go and go on to the next day. It's
Yeah.
just, but you know, I was guilty of the same thing. You know, if I didn't get it right, man, oh my God, I was terrible to myself. You know, but
And I think that's how a lot of, like, I thought it was a me problem, but the more, I've shown a few of my mates my manuscript of the book, and they're just like, oh my God, this is like 80% of my life.
yeah.
So, oh, she's starting to come down a bit heavy now.
Walk past her.
Yeah, that's all right. At least all these beautiful plants will get a nice watering.
Yeah.
But,
It is a lovely garden through here.
oh, it's so good. So if you're anywhere within, I don't know, like I would drive down here with my missus just to hang out and have a picnic and go for a walk, and I'd love to go for a run on it actually. It's a really nice place to run.
They run a park run down here actually.
Oh, cool. Love park run. So yeah, I definitely come and give this spot a visit because it's a beautiful spot. And there's a lot of little dirt trails that peel off here and there. So if you don't want to be walking concrete the whole time, I reckon you could find some nice little sections.
Yeah, and I think there's about 20 kilometres actually, Adam, of walking and mountain biking trails through the park.
Oh, nice.
And there's a 10k boundary trail, I think they call it. Runs around the outer boundary of the park.
Oh, next time we catch up for the next potty, mate, we'll come and do the boundary trail.
Some ruck shuffling.
Yeah.
David Goggins style.
Yeah, with the it's funny, the Goggins thing, like we have such an eclectic mix of people in our community. So we have mums, or actually we've got grandmas that are osteopenic and buy our 3 kilo vest.
Yep.
Just to stick onto their walks and to try to help them out with a little bit of muscle and bone health. We have mums and perimenopausal female. They're probably our biggest demographic at the moment, particularly with the 5 kilo weighted vest.
I can tell you my partner, who fits into several of those categories, loves it. I've tried to get her rucking for years, and she's had some spinal fusion and some back issues, and a ruck pack has always been painful for her because of where it sits. But she tried the ruck vest on, and she's been wearing it every day since she got it.
That's what we like to hear.
And you know, she is perimenopausal, possibly coming to the end of that, but you know, and she has noticed a loss of muscle tone. And so for her, it really is about, you know, what we were talking about before, keeping as strong as possible leading into her retirement years so we can travel more.
Yeah, and that's that health span thing again,
That's
right?
what it's about, right?
Yeah.
It's a vehicle so you can do the things you want to do later in life.
Yeah. And there's been a few studies, positive and negative, around like weighted walking and stuff like that, but like the first thing you commented on when I got out of the car was the size of my calf muscles.
Yes.
Like you're just like, holy shit, man. And that's, you know, I'm the envy of all my friends with the calf muscles as well. Yeah, I'm like, everybody skips leg day. Every day's leg day for me. But I know that because I don't go to the gym, I'm not doing leg press, I'm not doing squats, I'm not doing anything. All I'm doing is walking with weight, and I do it quite often. It's the bigger muscle groups that you're going to work, right? It's the glutes. Like I notice on a heavy ruck, man, my bum muscles are like wrecked, especially if you add some hills into that. But it's your calves, it's your thighs, it's your hammies, it's your glutes. And I think like if muscle mass, like if you've got the opportunity to improve your muscle mass as a percentage of your body weight, like it's common sense that you're going to work the muscles that are the biggest muscle groups, right? And so everyone talks about research papers and this and that, and you can read whatever you want into it, but I'm like, it's common sense that if you load up your everyday walking, you are going to work your glutes, you're going to work your hammies, you're going to work your calf muscles, and they're all really big muscle groups within your body. So next time you get a DEXA scan or an eVolt 360 scan, you should see improved muscle percentage gain versus you're going to get it way better than bicep curls, you're going to get it way better than working back muscles or so I look at everything commonsensically, like, you know, there's no way, I know there's probably no studies on rucking with sleep, but I know that improves my sleep by first hand, because like even, well, with this procedure, the tumour I've got to get cut out of my shoulder, I haven't been able to ruck heavy, and my sleep score on average for the last 3 months has been probably 5 points lower than what it normally is, because I'm not getting that lunchtime heavy ruck, which like exhausts me. And that's the feedback that we get from a lot of people that they're surprised with, is that, you know, oh, I'm sleeping, man, every time I go for a ruck, I sleep super well.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know, yeah, for sure. Do they do coffee in there? I reckon we do coffee.
But you know, a lot of what we're talking about is it Dan Butner? Is he the Blue Zones guy?
Yeah.
He always, every time I see him on Instagram, he's always create a lifestyle that you don't need a break from.
Yes.
And I think that's really important, because what we're talking about, they're small changes, right? They're just little changes, little tweaks, but it makes such a difference in the long run. And even you're talking about your rucking and just incorporate it into your daily walk. I mean, that could just mean, instead of carrying a regular bag to work with your computer and your lunch in it, why not take a rucking bag with a few kilos of weight and then put your lunch and your computer in there?
All right, well, been a great chat, my man.
It has.
We're at the, we'll show you where we're at. Not showing any kids on the camera. There's a nice little coffee spot here called the Gardens Cafe. So we're going to catch up with a coffee. We're going to plan out maybe some online ruck league stuff.
Sounds good.
Which will be awesome. Yeah, and Spartan Race are keen for that too. Yeah, so we'll have a good community that we can do it. But anyway, we'll circle back, and I reckon I catch up with you maybe in the next 6 months, and we'll do the big track.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we'll just see where you're up to with all your stuff.
Cheers.
Thanks, my man. Have a good one.